Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy set to take the stage at the second GOP presidential primary debate in just 10 days. Brand new Fox News polls show him holding steady at 11%, still in third place, but now just 2 points behind Ron DeSantis, who's dropped 3 points since the first debate. Ramaswamy made headlines this week by vowing to fire 75% of federal government workers by the end of his first four-year term if elected. He's also promised to eliminate several federal agencies, including the Department of Education and the FBI. Joining me now to discuss all of that and more is Vivek Ramaswamy. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Good morning, Shannon.
Okay, so let's start here. President Trump has widened his commanding lead. I mean, at 60% now. Many analysts say everybody else is just sort of playing for second place. You've said you would not accept the vice presidential spot. So what's the point of your campaign now?
So, look, the core focus for me, Shannon, is to take the America First agenda even further than Donald Trump did, but to reunite this country in the process. And I can't do that from a number two position or a cabinet role. I can do that as the next president of the United States, especially reaching young people in this country who are lacking in national pride. And Shannon, I think the way that we're going to be able to revive this country is by answering even what it means to be an American today. We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. I have a vision for reviving the 1776 ideals that set this nation into motion. I think we can still do it. We're not working with a lot of time. If my two young sons graduate from high school, if we're 10, 20 years into this and we haven't fixed it, I quite frankly don't think we'll have the same country left. But I think this is our window to get it right. That's what gives me my urgency. And I expect we will be successful. We came from 0.0% to where we are now. I think we're on track to win this election.
So your profile is growing, but as it does, our polling also shows your unfavorables are up. This is the latest polling, up 12 points since we polled this in August. One recent opinion piece puts it this way. Of all the descriptors attached to Vivek Ramaswamy, the 38-year-old political tyro enjoying a bizarre surge in the Republican primary race for second place, the most common one seems to be annoying. Why do you think, as more people have gotten to know you, your unfavorables are up too?
Well, look, we have been taking intense criticism, Shannon, over the last several weeks since I performed well on that second debate. And this is part of the process. So I invite the open debate. The reality is many people are annoyed by my rise and believe that a 38-year-old is too young to be U.S. president. The fact of the matter is Thomas Jefferson was 33 years old when he wrote the U.S. Declaration of Independence. He also invented the swivel chair while he was at it, by the way. And so I think we need to revive that spirit. And I believe, Shannon, it will take someone whose best days ahead are still yet ahead in life to see a country whose best days are still yet ahead of itself. And I do believe that the United States of America can see our best days still yet ahead. But we can't just be running from something. I don't criticize, actually, the radical Biden agenda that much because I think it's the wrong place to focus. Of course, there's a lot to criticize, but we have to offer a vision of our own. Not just what are we running from, what are we running to? Revive meritocracy, the pursuit of excellence, economic growth, free speech, open debate. These are basic values that most Americans still agree with, Shannon. And that's why I'm confident that we have a chance to deliver a 1980-style, Ronald Reagan-style moral mandate. That is how we'll unite this country. And I am in this race because I think I am the single best positioned candidate to do it. And even though we've taken criticisms from basically nearly every other candidate that's been threatened by my rise, I'm not running against any of them. I am running for this country. That's the mission we're guided by.
Okay, I want to do a lightning round so we can get to some topics with you. I want to talk about your decision or announcement that you would fire 75% of the federal workforce. Didn't go over well here in Washington, as you might imagine, but maybe that's your whole point. You and I are both lawyers. You talk through the statutory and regulatory framework you believe would allow you to do this. I'm having a hard time finding any scholars in that field who agree with you, but plenty who disagree, including Peter M. Shane, scholar in residence at New York University and a specialist in separation of powers law. He says this campaign white paper you have on it is fantastical. Peter L. Strauss, professor emeritus of law at Columbia, said it took bits of statutory law out of context while totally ignoring the Constitution. So you got to know it's going to be tied up in legal framework and fights if you did get there. But what about the practical implications of this? I mean, people who can't get student loans processed or a background check for a gun. I mean, there's a reality to getting rid of 1 million federal workers.
Yes, so a couple of things, Shannon. On the legality of it, there are professors from Yale Law School to Columbia Law School that have carefully advised on this. And with due respect, I am probably the only presidential candidate whose books have been quoted by federal appellate court judges in their opinions in recent years. It turns out that presidents have been duped by that standard advisor class who said you can't fire these employees due to civil service protections. The fact of the matter is those civil service protections only apply to individual employee firings, not mass layoffs. So I do think it takes a president with the first personal understanding of the law and the Constitution.
Okay, what about
and
the
good news, Shannon, is the current
implications?
Supreme Court. Yes, the Supreme Court agrees with me 6-3 on that, I believe. Practically speaking, this is a deeply practical policy. Take the FBI shutdown that I've proposed. That one turned the most heads. 35,000 employees at the FBI, but I've been clear that we will keep 15,000 of the agents on the front lines. We will just move them to the U.S. Marshals or to the Drug Enforcement Agency or to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network at U.S. Treasury, where they will have greater specialization and be even more effective at enforcing the law today than they already are. So this is deeply practical, both for effectiveness as well as for reduction of cost and competitiveness. Department of Education, same thing. That $80 billion, put it in the hands of families. This will stimulate our economy.
Okay, let's talk about H-1B visas. On the issue there, you've said you would gut that program, which allows us to hire foreign workers for specialized tech and other jobs here in the U.S. Politico says this: that's the very system that you used in the past to hire high-skilled foreign workers for the pharma company that built much of your wealth. You've called it a form of indentured servitude that can only accrue to the benefit of the company. So why did the company you start use that 29 times in the last 5 years?
Shannon, I believe the energy system in this country and energy regulation needs drastic reform too, but I still use water and electricity and turn on the lights. So the fact of the matter is I have an understanding of the regulatory apparatus because I have dealt with it as a CEO and an entrepreneur who's built multiple companies. What I think is we need to replace the H-1B lottery system. That's what people need to appreciate. It's a lottery. Why on earth would you use a lottery when you could just use meritocratic admission instead? Restore merit. There's also lobbying-based provisions where companies who sponsor somebody, that H-1B immigrant cannot work for a different company unless they actually have a whole bureaucratic process to go through. We have to gut that system, restore meritocratic immigration, which is skills, not just tech skills, but all kinds of skills to match the needs we have in this country, but also civic commitments to this country. Take the citizenship test on the back end. I say move it to the front end, even to get a visa. So yes, Shannon, I come from a place of understanding, and I've played within the rules that have been given to us by the government. But part of my job as U.S. president is to reform those rules to help all Americans. And I won't apologize for restoring merit and debureaucratizing that legal immigration process.
Okay, I do truly want to try to do some lightning round on foreign policy because it's where you seem to be having to make the most clarifications. Let's talk about Taiwan. Business Insider has this headline: GOP presidential hopeful says he would let China invade Taiwan so long as the U.S. has got enough semiconductors. You've talked about us being independent on that front, and at some point that would dial back our commitment to defend Taiwan. Is that the message we want to send to China?
I want to be crystal clear, Shannon, because everyone, Americans should know this. Both political parties and the U.S. position right now is a one China policy towards China of strategic ambiguity. I am the only candidate in either party who has been clear. We will defend Taiwan, at least until we get semiconductor independence, at which point we resume the current posture of strategic ambiguity towards that island. That is honest. And here's how I'm going to lead in our foreign policy. Clear red lines.
So once you have that independence, though, that we do on semiconductors, are you then signaling to China that we would not defend Taiwan?
I am signaling that we go back to our current posture, the status quo, accepted by both parties, of strategic ambiguity. That's where we are now. I say resume that, but in the meantime, we need to upgrade our commitments to say we will defend Taiwan. I've been crystal clear, and I am the only candidate in either party who has said it.
Okay, a couple of clarifications on Israel. You have said that we would defend them, but former Vice President Pence, who was with us a couple of weeks ago here, said that he was really worried that you wouldn't use military defenses to defend Israel against Iran. He called it deeply troubling. He says you got to send the message to the mullahs there that we will do what it takes to defend Israel. Now, is your issue no boots on the ground, or are we also saying no military equipment, drones, airstrikes, those kinds of things?
No, Shannon, you can look at my written statements on this. I've been crystal clear, and I'm disappointed in the other candidates for mischaracterizing it. I said we will defend Israel militarily in the case of conflict with Iran, but we would not want to put boots on the ground. And any other candidate who disagrees with that position, I challenge them to be clear about how many American men and women, our sons and daughters, would they send to die in another war in the Middle East. I have heard crickets in response to that question.
Okay.
But the reality is we will defend militarily. That's different than boots on the ground. And even Israel, the staunchest Israel advocates in Israel, do not have expectations of American men and women putting boots on the ground to invade another country.
And I know you said on the issue of aid, we would only withdraw U.S. aid from Israel once they tell us they no longer need it. I can't imagine any country telling us they don't need U.S. aid, but I understand
actually,
that's
Shannon,
your line.
That is my line. But it's a funny fact. The one leader who's ever said it was Bibi, the leader of Israel, in the mid-1990s when he told us that they didn't need civilian aid anymore, which is why our relationship with Israel is so strong. We can be candid with each other. Bibi is candid. So am I. That's why we'll have a great relationship.
All right. One last point. You talked about, and I'm quoting you, a broader comprehensive vision for disengagement from the Middle East. Do you worry about a vacuum that would create, the message that it sends there to very bad actors in the neighborhood where Israel lives who talk about, wiping that country off the map? What is this idea of disengaging, or the U.S. disengaging from the Middle East?
Well, this is my whole foreign policy vision, is the number one threat we face is communist China. So realistically speaking, and I'm a realist when it comes to foreign policy, we have to direct our attention there, not to the USSR, which doesn't exist anymore. And I think compared to the Middle East, communist China is a top priority for the U.S. to defend against. That's why our alliance with Israel is particularly important, because we have to have a stable partner that ensures stability in the Middle East.
Okay.
That's why I want to lead Israel into Abraham Accords 2.0. And so I am a realist when it comes to foreign policy. Assert American interests, but keep your eye on the real threat that is communist China today. And I think we should reckon with that and admit it, or else we're going to make serious mistakes over the next 4 years.
All right, we're only scratching the surface, so please come back. Vivek, great to have you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.